Welcome back to my channel, Ascension Chick. Hello, my ascending babes, and on today's topic, I want to talk about Mr. Keir Starmer and how he wants to bring in the digital IDs into the UK. I mean, look at this goofy ass fucking guy. You have this goofball that wants you, yes you, to submit to him and the government. He wants you guys in Britain to just shut up and obey. They want to have your biometric identification to use for surveillance. Because since we're in the Aquarian age, journalist mass has fallen off, and people don't care anymore, especially when it comes to our own politicians. They're just more upfront about it now. All these politicians are just mere puppets for elite people, and they are the same ones involved in the Illuminati and other secret societies. But at least we have people becoming more awakened and aware every day for all the sick stuff that the governments around the world are trying to put in place to create a dystopian society.
Keir Starmer's government wants people in the UK to have a digital ID stored on their mobile phones that will be a basic requirement for the right to work in the country.
This government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. With Reform and Nigel Farage.
The issue of identity cards has been debated for decades in the UK and remains highly controversial. Unlike in most other parts of Europe, where ID cards have long existed and digital versions have either been launched or are being tested, there is reluctance among British people. People on the streets of Hull in northern England express tech security and civil liberty concerns.
You look at the way things get hacked, and it's bad enough you can get fake IDs as it is, and with everything online, it just makes things a bit more less human.
These top kind of data protection companies or these tech firms can't protect people's data. Who's to say that Westminster can do any better, or Whitehall or whoever it is? Just, you know, it's a bit of a concern and like a bit of an infringement.
The move is being billed as part of the government's efforts to curb illegal migration and counter the rising influence of the populist Reform UK party led by Nigel Farage. An Ipsos poll in July indicated 57% of people in the UK supported a national identity card scheme. However, 3 in 10 were concerned about personal data being used without permission. A petition to get the government to backtrack has already been signed by over 1 million people.
This is not the first time that we heard about these digital IDs before. Don't you guys remember? We had the COVID pandemic back in 2020 going into 2021, and that is where the governments want to introduce the digital IDs because of the COVID vaccines. Because once these pharmaceutical companies came out of the woodwork and gave us a quickly made vaccines for everyone to want to take, or I should say forced to take because it was a requirement for schools and jobs, they expected you as an individual to not ask any questions before taking it. They wanted to see who complied and took the vaccines versus the ones who didn't comply. And this is why they decided to create these vaccine passes. Ultimately, these vaccine passes were the very early beginnings of the digital IDs that we now know. And we already saw this basically played out when it came to the vaccine passports, where if you didn't have the COVID vaccine, you wouldn't be able to travel. There are many countries that were involved in the vaccine passports, such as America, Britain, Portugal, Australia, etc. so forth. Well, the main topic right now is within the UK of the digital IDs, but I'm telling you right now, I think Donald Trump would definitely want to bring it here in the States too. The sense of freedom that this country within America likes to display is false. It's not true. All they want to do is take our rights away and just force us into submission, and that's it. They don't see us as real people. They see us as little worker bees to them or slaves. Because guess what? Everything keeps coming back to power and control. And the reason why they want to control you is to keep you seduced so you can't fight back to protest and revolutionize the system. These digital IDs have been compared to the mark of the beast from the Bible. And the reason being is because in the book of Revelations it says this quote here: "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." This means that you or anyone who decides to take the mark will be showing allegiance to the beast or the Antichrist, or whoever is a political figure from the government. And without the mark or the chip implanted or pass, you will not be able to buy nor sell, thus won't be able to participate within society. And I really do believe we have people within our own government and also within the Blue Star government is hell that are trying to usher in the Antichrist because, as you can see what's happening within the Middle East, they are beginning the end times prophecy. And they were even trying to sacrifice a red heifer, but turned out that the red heifer wasn't fully red because it turns out they found 2 little black hairs on the heifer. I mean, it's not really funny though, because I mean, this is what these guys really want to do. They really want to bring in the Antichrist through their sick rituals. Overall, the mark of the beast is a warning about the danger of total authority and the loss of individual freedom and conscience. So this is the thing, when it comes to digital IDs, what happens when they're hacked online? You get your private information exposed easily. Or what happens if you say something on social media and the government doesn't like it, then the government can decide to cut off your access to your bank accounts, which will mean you won't be able to buy your groceries, your rent, your mortgage, bills, etc. and so forth. You literally won't be able to survive. It'll be like your government is cutting your water off, but like literally. China is a prime example of this right now as we speak, because they have their own social credit score system, and they are basically living in a digital dictatorship with their own digital ID system.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now, the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good, around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it, and anyway, we don't have a choice.
But in an effort to keep all of its subjects in line, Beijing is taking the system a step further in 2020. It's aggregating data gathered by banks, private companies, and the state to rate if someone's a good or bad citizen.
By using the most data possible, the so-called big data, the system will play an important role in rebuilding a moral society.
The state will go over every detail of a person's life with a fine-tooth comb. Their financial situation, spending habits, career, even behavior on social media. Criticizing the government online or displaying outward signs of wealth is a no-no. On the other hand, praising the party or giving blood increases your social credit. Xiao Wen-Wang is a model citizen. She lives in Nanjing, a testing ground for social ranking. Married with a child, she has a job in a retirement home, no debts, and she wouldn't dream of jaywalking.
As a good citizen, I respect the rules of the road. If I didn't, I'd lose points on my social credit.
In theory, everything can be taken into account in the social score, even the most innocuous errands like supermarket shopping. When Xiao Wen-Wang makes an electronic payment, her purchases tell the state a lot about her. Buying cigarettes would count against her. On the other hand, nappies show she's an attentive mother. Beer could indicate alcoholism. She'd be better off buying water.
Wait a damn minute.
Pause. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody should be telling you as a grown adult that you cannot buy this or that, or you cannot drink or smoke. I'll say in this case here, she should be buying nappies or Pampers for her baby, but she should also be allowed to buy her own cigarettes or alcohol if she feel like it, as a treat for herself without feeling guilty and scared because of the government seeing what she purchases from the store. And if you do, that means the government will lower your social credit score. I mean, why the hell are these guys allowing the government to do this to them? And unfortunately, you guessed it, it's because of fear. They are too scared to fight against their own government.
In a city of 8 million people, there are only 18,000 model citizens. For Xiao Wen-Wang, there are perks to be had, such as paying half price for the bus.
I get discounts for all public services, even at museums. And the library is free for me, thanks to my score.
A good score brings benefits, but people with low scores lose rights. The cinema names and shames people considered untrustworthy, plastering their details, even their addresses, across big screens.
It's a matter of principle. Those people have to be condemned.
Those people aren't honest, so they have to pay the price.
It's only right to pay your debts. You have to blacklist those that don't.
The Supreme Court has created a blacklist for so-called bad citizens, those whose ratings have dropped to 0. On it are companies, but also 23 million people to date. Among them is this journalist Liu Hu. He got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. But he only realized when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from traveling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he's been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
Liu Hu is among a tiny minority of people who have dared to criticize the system, which some are calling a digital dictatorship.
I worry because I think many people like me will be deprived of individual freedoms, and all of us will live with restrictions of one kind or another.
After our meeting, Liu Hu learned that his name had been removed from the blacklist, but he still has a long way to go if he doesn't want to languish at the bottom of the social credit hierarchy.
This is really scary stuff that we're seeing here. And unfortunately, we're seeing this happening in real time. Because the Chinese people are being treated like little children by their own government and not like adults that should have the free will to do whatever they want within society. And this is obviously excluding any criminal activities, so yeah. I really feel bad for these people because you can tell that a lot of them are brainwashed, unfortunately. And they always like to follow whatever rules are told to them without any questions asked. They need to have more backbone, but fortunately these guys are living underneath a dictatorship. So it's going to be very hard to rebel against their government. But I mean, they really need to make something happen. I mean, it's unfair and it's unjust. I mean, nobody should be living life like that. Then the most crazy part of this video is when they had the so-called misfits on the blacklist and they had to show their own personal information, such as their home address out there for everybody publicly to see. Then you had other people sitting there and saying that these misfit people should be punished and basically removed from society. Ultimately, the Chinese government have the people turning against each other, and that's what they want. You had a man there that was digging up personal information on the government officials that are corrupt, and guess what? He got ostracized from their own society because he was also trying to uncover the truth. So it's not only China, you also have Vietnam that's involved in the digital ID system. So you do have other countries around the world that are slowly but surely trying to usher in this digital ID system. Right now, we're already seeing the rise of censorship, and these digital IDs would just bring us further into a dystopian society. One could argue that we're already in one, and I agree we're in the beginning stages of it since society all around seems to be collapsing along with the economy. Now, I'm going to need you guys to put on your tinfoil hats because I'm going to bring up a special guy that is well known within the conspiracy theorist community, and the most well-known guy is David Icke. Say what you want to say about David Icke, but he is a very well-spoken and intelligent man, and especially when it comes to this topic of digital IDs and what the governments around the world have in store for us with these IDs. Isn't it funny when you have people that like to talk about conspiracy theorists like they're crazy for their own beliefs, but what happens when their beliefs are becoming reality? Because you had David Icke and other conspiracy theorists talking about these digital IDs before the government started to install them into society. In this video that I'm going to show you on David Icke, he goes on to talk about how the government wants to reinforce their power and control to force everyone to live under censorship and whatnot, trying to create a dystopia.
The idea was to incubate within China a system of mass control, not least based on AI and technology, which when it was perfected would be played out across the world and become the global system. The idea or the fact that this came out of China makes perfect sense, because what has happened as a result of, quote, COVID, in the West and the rest of the world, it's become more and more and more like China. The Chinese system that is coming into the West under the name vaccine passport is the social credit system. And this is all part of this post-Mao incubation of a global system in China. So what happens, if people haven't come across it, is there are millions of surveillance cameras in every Chinese city. The AI system in China is tracking and logging and monitoring people in real time, 24/7. And it's logging whether you are behaving in ways that the government wants or whether it's in ways the government doesn't want. If it's the way the government wants, you get credits. If it's not, you have them taken away. And once you reach a point where you've lost enough credits, you can't fly, you can't go on a train, you can't basically operate in mainstream society. We now have these increasingly, in country after country, vaccine passports. Now, what are they saying? They're saying if you don't do what the government tells you to do, then you can't operate in mainstream society. You're excluded from society. Now, that's just what happens in China because it's the Chinese system going global. This is another reason why a lot of people have moved into this camp of pushback, is they were told that you have the first 2 jabs and then you go back to normal. And if we have a vaccine pass, you've got a vaccine pass. You'll be all right. And then they said, well, actually, you need a 3rd. And in a place like Israel, you need a 4th. And by the way, if you don't have them, then you're not fully vaxxed and you lose your vaccine passport and you go back to being excluded from society in the same way people have identity.
We have movies out there that show us what our potential future could look like if we allow the government to push us into a dystopian society. You have movies like They Live, V for Vendetta, 1984, and much more. Within the film of They Live, it shows you all the subliminal messaging throughout the film. At least within the film, wants the average person to stay asleep and to consume the media, to never fully awaken and to see through the true meaning of all the subliminal messages. Until you have the main character played by a Roddy Piper that comes across these special glasses that allows them to finally see through the propaganda. In this particular part of the film, you have the elites and the globalists all together and are having a dinner event where they talk about how in 2025, the same year that we're living in right now, they have a special power alliance of everyone on Earth for their own benefits, along with evil entities that you will see within this clip.
Our projections show that by the year 2025, not only America, but the entire planet will be under the protection and the dominion of this power alliance. The gains have been substantial, both for ourselves and for you, the human power elite. You have given us entree to the resources we need in our ongoing quest for multidimensional expansion. And in return, the per capita income of each of you here tonight has grown, and this year alone, by an average 39%. Kids live laughing. And I've just received word that our forces have won a major victory. The underground terrorist network has been destroyed here on the West Coast. We are off crisis alert. The situation is normal again.
And V for Vendetta shows you how society changes completely for the worse and fall into a dictatorship when everyone decides to obey to their leader and to follow all the propaganda or lose their freedom, where they could be imprisoned or killed. Under this government, censorship is heavily enforced. There's no freedom of speech, religion, expression, press, etc. Until V, the royal vigilante, begins the revolution to revolt against the chancellor, and freedom is finally rediscovered amongst the British people.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. And I thought we could mark this November the 5th, a day that's sadly no longer remembered, by taking some time out of our daily lives to sit down and have a little chat. There are, of course, those who do not want us to speak. We think, just let me think back, even now, orders are being shouted into telephobes and men with guns will soon be on their way. Chancellor Sattler. Damn it. Why? Because while the truncheon may be used in lieu of conversation, words will always retain their power. Words are for the means to meaning, and for those who will listen, the enunciation of truth. And the truth is, there is something terribly wrong with this country, isn't there? You designed it, sir. You wanted it foolproof. You told me every television in London. Cruelty and injustice, intolerance and depression. And where once you had the freedom to object, to think and speak as you saw fit, you now have censors and systems of surveillance coercing your conformity and your submission. Really, cameras. How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others. They will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror. I know why you did it. I know you were afraid. Who wouldn't be? War, terror, disease. There were a myriad of problems which conspired to corrupt your reason and rob you of your common sense. Fear got the best of you, and in your panic you turned to the now High Chancellor, Adam Sutler. He promised you order, he promised you peace, and all he demanded in return was your silent, obedient consent. Spectre, you're almost through. Last night I sought to end that silence. Last night I destroyed the Old Bailey to remind this country of what it has forgotten. More than 400 years ago, a great citizen wished to embed the 5th of November forever in our memory. His hope was to remind the world that fairness, justice, and freedom are more than words. They are perspectives. So if you've seen nothing, if the crimes of this government remain unknown to you, then I would suggest that you allow the 5th of November to pass unmarked. But if you see what I see, if you feel as I feel, and if you would seek as I seek, then I ask you to stand beside me 1 year from tonight outside the gates of Parliament, and together we shall give them a 5th of November that shall never, ever be forgotten.
Oh, and I almost forgot to say, even within this film, it shows you how the government likes to create and explain why they do false flags, especially using bioterrorism and other methods.
Our story begins, as these stories often do, with a young, up-and-coming politician. He's a deeply religious man and a member of the Conservative Party. He is completely single-minded and has no regard for the political process. The more power he attains, the more obvious zealotry, and the more aggressive his supporters become. Eventually, his party launches a special project in the name of national security. At first, it's believed to be a search for biological weapons, and it's pursued without regard to its cost. However, the true goal of this project is power. Complete and total hegemonic domination. The project, however, ends violently. But the efforts of those involved are not in vain, for a new ability to wage war is born from the blood of one of the victims. Imagine a virus. The most terrifying virus you can, and then imagine that you and you alone have the cure. If your ultimate goal is power, how best to use such a weapon? For us at this point in our story, that along comes a spider. He is a man seemingly without a conscience, for whom the ends always justify the means, and it is he who suggests that their target should not be an enemy of the country, but rather the country itself. 3 targets are chosen to maximize the effect of the attack: a school, a tube station, and a water treatment plant. Several hundred die within the first few weeks. The Three Waters has in fact been contaminated. Authorities are attempting to control its deadly spread. It's a wave of destruction throughout the underground. Fueled by the media, fear and panic spread quickly, fracturing and dividing the country until at last the true goal comes into view. Before St. Mary's crisis, no one would have predicted the results of the election that year, no one. And then not long after the election, lo and behold, a miracle. Some believed it was the work of God himself, but it was a pharmaceutical company controlled by certain party members that made them all obscenely rich. A year later, several extremists are tried, found guilty and executed, while a memorial is built to canonize their victims. But the end result, the true genius of the plan, was the fear. Fear became the ultimate tool of this government, and through it, our politician was ultimately appointed to the newly created position of High Chancellor. The rest, as they say...
Does that remind you of any governments right now? And the same goes for the 1984 movie as well. The citizens within the movie are under a dictatorship where they are constantly fed propaganda, where most of the people can't think for themselves anymore. The dictator has them on hard surveillance all the time wherever they go. But there are a few brave characters that decide to stop listening to the propaganda, but unfortunately, those characters get into trouble because they disobeyed and are made to suffer. You have Keir Starmer lying to everybody right now, saying that these digital IDs are not mandatory. I mean, can you fucking believe this shit?
Today, this is Barclays Bank, and I've been talking to customers about digital ID, and they're really enthusiastic. It'll have your basic information on it. For everything other than proving you've got a right to work, it won't be mandatory. You don't have to have it, but you can.
This guy seems to really think that the British people are fucking stupid, especially the young ones.
You can use it for anything that requires identification, and there are lots of things. If you want to rent, for example, if you want to apply for a mortgage, if you want to get your child into primary school, there's a catchment area, and you've got to show where you live, proving who you are, what your date of birth is, will just be able to be done with digital ID. They're really up for it, and I think once you understand just how much easier it'll make life, so many more people will be too.
This is why I don't understand this whole digital ID thing, because what would be the purpose to have it when we already have our own basic information, like your name, your date of birth, and your address on your own driver's license already, which is a physical card that you could carry wherever you go, and it already identifies you. I am definitely happy to see that you have people within the UK that are willing to resist against this bullshit. As you can see, there are people that are willing to protest right now in the streets against the digital ID system.
Where they wanted to make the point right outside the seat of power. And what's interesting about the people gathered here today is the fact that there's so many people that you wouldn't really expect to be at a protest ordinarily. People who just feel very strongly that they feel this is taking society in the wrong direction. They very much think that these digital ID cards are the wrong way to go. They say it's a risk to their security and to their privacy, and they say they will hold protests like this until these ideas are scrapped. Well, the government's insisted that they're going to make people's lives easier if they're introduced in 2029. That it'll be an app on your smartphone, a bit like the NHS app that many people have got, and it will give people access to some of the public services and make life easier, and also to tackle illegal migration as well by proving people's right to work. But these proposals have been criticised by a lot of people who say this is like a digitisation of personal information. It raises some questions, as I say, about where this data and these details go. Well, I've been talking to some people here about what they think. Let's hear what some of the protesters have to say about this idea.
We want our freedom. We need to keep control of our sovereignty. End of. You start down this route and then it just goes on. Yeah?
I'm born here. I live here. I've got an address here. I pay council tax here.
So you just don't think it's necessary?
Nobody wants to be chipped and pinned and corralled and computerised and controlled by the government, which is what this is all about. Digital ID. It's not about keeping immigration down. You don't need... The Navy can do that. The law can do that. It's about controlling us.
Well, it's not just members of the public unhappy at these plans. Political parties have also said they don't support them. The Conservative Party said this is a gimmick and it won't stop the boats. Nigel Farage said he'd oppose the idea, and the Lib Dems say they wouldn't support people being made to turn over their private data. But certainly a very strong feeling here in London.
And you even had David Icke come out to help with the protests.
Agenda instigated by a global network. And people like this guy, Keir Starmer, he's just a gopher. Trump is just a gopher. They're here today, gone tomorrow people. Whereas the cult network that's orchestrating it, has orchestrated it through the decades and the centuries, is always there. And this is a real line in the sand, and if we allow it to be crossed, then what's the future of freedom? There isn't any.
So let this be a big warning for us that unless we the people worldwide decide to fight and resist against this, definitely become our future reality if we choose not to and just blindly let it happen. People should not be fearing their own government. The government should be fearing their people. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. And please make sure you follow my Instagram and my TikTok. Thank you.